and welcome back to Gameable Audio, a VGM podcast. I am your host, Kristoffer Schenström, and this is the first episode of 2025, episode 50. And it is not just episode 50, this is also the second year anniversary for Gameable Audio as the Gameable Audio brand, which is super fun to have just to begin with. But that is not all. First guest of this year is also here. We have Jouni Valjakka. Hello!
Hello, and thanks for having me.
It is so much fun. We've been talking a little bit back and forth in order to just set everything up for this one. And the game we're going to talk about is a very special one as well, as it is actually my old level design teacher who has been working on this game.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Cool.
No, Martin has been a teacher at the game assembly where I was taught level design.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is super cool as well. And he was actually the one that introduced me to you and was like, hey, you should check this guy out. And of course, noticing what type of game he's been working on and just presenting me on a silver platter your name, I was like, yeah, but we definitely need to do this.
Yeah, nice. Thanks for Martin.
Yes, definitely. But first and foremost, we need to get a little bit more information. We're just diving straight into this. I mean, New Year, I'm just super excited for this. So, Jouni, considering when you started out with music, where did it all start for you? When did you start getting into music?
Well, music was really present in my childhood because my grandmother was, or is, a really famous opera singer. And I was like going to opera when I was a kid, and also my parents were listening a lot of classical and classic rock at home. But like, I think I've always loved music, and game music was something that resonated with me when I was really young. Like right away when I heard, I think the first game we got was like just Super Mario with the Duck Hunt.
And the old Nintendo 8-bit.
Yeah, and the pistol with the Duck Hunt. But those were like, I was, okay, this music is fine, but then I got Mega Man 2. And that was like, that blew my mind. Like, holy shit, this got some really good stuff.
And it's also a little bit closer to heart in a sense as well, considering that Mega Man tried to have a little bit of a rock and roll kind of theme to it.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like you can really hear the 8-bit like mimicking guitars and stuff like that. Like really building up. You could easily take some Mega Man music and just like present them as Iron Maiden songs.
That would be quite nice to hear an Iron Maiden cover of Mega Man song, however.
Yeah, and that would work basically because that's the structure and there are very much similar type of things happening. But yeah, like if after I was interested in game music like really early, I was also started to get interest to guitar. It basically started like my parents almost forced me to go to music school to learn guitar because they saw that I have some talent, but I didn't have patience. So I was
so they tried to get some more patience throughout studies then, right?
Yeah, like basically just learn some music, and it was great. Firstly, I was like, I don't know if this is for me, but once I started to get hang of it, I learned acoustic guitar. I was like in music school, you say basically, but I was there like 5 or 6 years. It's hard to remember. But after that, I got interested in metal music. Like my friend's dad was playing Master of Puppets with with the electric guitar, and I was just like starting to dig Metallica back then, and I was like, holy shit, you can really play that yourself. And then I brought some like tabs or notes of Metallica songs to my music school, and my acoustic guitar teacher didn't like that at all. But I was like,
so the teacher was more towards the classical way
classical
of
music, and I was like, I want to learn this shit. Can you teach me this shit? Then he like, okay, but this is different. And he was like, it was quite soon after that. I was like, no, I don't want to play acoustic guitar anymore. I want to just play metal.
It seems so stereotypical for Finnish people to play metal as well. I mean, there's so much export of metal music from Finland. I myself, I love Finnish metal.
Yeah, cool.
Especially symphonic metal for me.
Cool. Yeah, like for when I was after like grabbing the electric guitar, it was quite soon after that I started my band. We started with the name Zealot, but then we changed quite fast the name Whispered.
Okay.
And we've released 3 albums. Our 4th album is on the way.
Ooh.
Way at the moment, and we basically play this symphonic melodic death metal with Japanese folk influences.
Interesting. That it almost feels like a fusion style then.
Yeah.
Of some kind. That's really interesting though. How come you got into the Japanese end of it?
Well, I was really digging like Children of Bodom a lot, and after that I started to really dig folk metal music like Ensiferum, Fintroll, Moonsorrow, and bands like that. And basically I was thinking that I would like to make something like original with the folk aspect. And I've always been a fan of Japanese culture, so it started from there. Okay.
Interesting. Considering I have actually interviewed another Finnish composer who was quite more younger, and he utilized some instruments from Finnish culture and folk music. Is that something you wanted to implement as well into the death metal of it all, or is it too hard to implement those kind of things?
No, I don't think so. Like there are many Finnish metal bands who use traditional instruments also in the music. Like one of my all-time favorite band at the moment is Moonsorrow. I think they've done really great job with like folk influences in a sense.
Interesting.
But it's like I've had some ideas making some Finnish folk metal music as well. It might happen at some point, but for me, like, well, the 4th album it's been in the making quite a while. Our last album came out 2016, so it's been a while. But yeah, that's the main focus besides game music for me.
So considering that you were traditionally studying with the guitar and so on, and you went from there over to more electric guitar and metal, what made you come back then to the video game aspect of it all? And when did it start happening, or was it always in the background of your mind?
I think it's like the first video game music I ever did was for this Ultima Online type of like pixel graphic MMORPG game.
Okay.
I was really enjoying playing Transit. It's this like basically Ultima Online type of game, and that game created some buzz back in the day. It was popular at the same time as RuneScape.
Oh, okay.
And Transit was really popular for a while. And it created some smaller versions of it, basically. and I was writing music for one of those games, and it was like this fantasy dungeon synth type of stuff that I really enjoy doing. And it was
nice.
It was the first. It wasn't never released, but that was my first touch to the world. But it got professional much more later on. When I contacted the developers, or the devs, then there was maybe... Well, no, there were more. I contacted the developers of Vigil, The Longest Night, the metroidvania game, and asked like, okay, do you need music, and basically, and then I wrote some demos for them, and it started from there.
Oh, interesting. Did you feel like, considering that you just got there and it's like, hey, do you need a musician? Did it feel anything special to you just going in and asking for it rather than somebody else like, hey, you're a musician, do you want to make music for this?
Well, I was really passionate of getting to the industry because I was like my really good friend Yukio Kallio, who's made music for games like Fall Guys and stuff like that, and he was like pursuing, he has been in a career for a while. Yeah, and I was like, it was really huge motivation for me, just like getting out there and making some game music, because it's something I've loved since child, so
Yeah.
it felt really natural for me.
And it seems for me it's so much fun as well right now, because Yukio Kalla is someone we heard before in this podcast, not as a guest, but somebody else has name dropped him.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And for me specifically, I loved his soundtrack for Luftrausers.
Oh yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, it is so bonkers. When he first released that, it was like, there's too many songs on this.
Yeah.
But it's so much fun, and I love that you're name dropping him as well. It is crazy. It feels like such a small world, and I love it.
Yeah, it is like the main indie game music scene, or basically any music scene is like, it really often goes in the way that people just know each other and also want to elevate each other more than just be rivals.
That is awesome as well. I mean, considering how far Finland has been working on their video game export as well, considering not just for mobile. Rovio is very famous with Angry Birds and so on, but there's still so many other companies in Finland that have exported video games and video game music throughout the years, which is absolutely bonkers to me. And for me, it feels like a lot of them feels very centered surrounding like the southern part of Finland. But for you who lives in Finland, how is it actually considering video game and trying to just fit your little slot in there?
Well, I think in Finland, well, the most of the games come from the like southern Finland. I think that like in Finland, I think the scene has shrunk down a bit. I think the indie game scene, in a sense. I remember there were more like these happenings where people were like getting to know each other, or people from the industry. I've seen less of those events happening over the years, but still I think there's much people are still making games from Finland, and insanely good games are coming from Finland.
Definitely.
Like Alan Wake 2, something like, which really I think reflects the crazy mindset of Finnish people.
Depression.
Yeah. That's what we do.
That's why you make such an amazing games. It's depression.
Yeah, long dark winters, depression and booze.
Yeah.
That's the secret for success.
And sauna.
Yeah.
That's all you need. No, but in all honesty, let's return a little bit back here. But yeah, you started out with this pixelated MMO and started making what became unreleased music in the end. But I'm guessing you still have the tracks, right? Have you published them at one point?
I published some of them at Finnish service called Mixeri.
Okay.
That's like, there are some of the songs, and I've been searching for the I would like to. I've lost some of them because my hard drive for my old computer blew up, and I was stupid because I didn't have backup of everything from that hard drive, and it's been many years. And I actually found a Discord group dedicated to those games, like Transic-like games. And there were some names I haven't seen in many years, and I was just asking around, like, can you remember on which game I made music? Because I'm not sure, not even about the name anymore, because there were quite a few. And I tried to search for the files, but no luck yet. But maybe someday the right person will come by.
Somebody who will go through all of them.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, it would be great to have like all the stuff I've did, like just saved. That would be great.
That would be great. No, but moving on as well with the different kind of, you asked like, hey, can I make like the music for you guys? And you went on and made some demos there. I'm guessing the moral of that story was they actually said like, hey, let's go.
Yeah. Quite fast we got to the same page, and they really liked the work that I did, and it was cool also because I was like, I was doing at some point also these like horror types of, how would you say, like Danny Elfman circus type of horror stuff, and that had laid some groundwork for the Vigil: The Longest Night soundtrack. like the whole horror aspect, and I've always been a huge fan of horror, so it was really good, really cool project.
That sounds interesting as well. I mean, if you have already a genre that you really love and adore yourself, and you feel like, oh, this is close to heart. But considering this Danny Elfman, was that more for like a video movie series kind of thing, or was it also some sort of game, not just the Vigil now?
No, it's just for me. It was just making songs for the internet, basically. But it was like how was it? Well, 2017 I started working on the Vigil, the longest night, maybe. But the horror music I did, like, it was way before that. But I still had that spark for that.
But I find it interesting as well, considering that you were doing like symphonic death metal on top of this at the same time. Yeah. Is there any sort of connection there that I'm not fully grasping myself here? I mean, considering from what I've learned of death metal, it has this corny kind of piece to it, and well, sounds like death.
There was, because I remember that they got interested of my music because I linked them the songs of my band, Wishbird's songs.
Yep.
And then they were like, oh, that's cool stuff. Do you want to make a demo for us? So basically it started like that. So the music I made, I've written for my band, really helped me there.
Okay. And moving on from that type of game, did anything else follow up right away, or did it take some time considering more kind of projects, etc.? Or did you focus more on your own kind of music and develop through that?
I think at that time we were touring with the band, and I got small gig for a game called Neverinth.
Okay.
Game was released unfinished, but it got two of my tracks at least. And then besides music, I've also done much music videos and lyric videos for bands, including my own band. So I've been doing that stuff also, but. Yeah, I think the next like big project was Voidwrought, which was like much later.
Interesting. But considering Voidwrought as well, we're of course getting closer to start diving into it. As of course you already name drop it right now, it feels like, yeah, we're getting closer to the end where we're going to take on and deep dive more into. But when did you get in contact with the developers of this game?
I think it was 2021, or maybe somewhere around that. And I contacted them through Twitter, just asking like, yeah, the game looks really cool. Do you have a composer yet? And besides that, also I was contacted by a game called Anima, Song from the Abyss. And I've been writing that soundtrack also. It's still unfinished. I think I don't know when the game will be released, but it has really successful Kickstarter like last year or year before that.
Okay, but that's kind of what you're coming from Voidwrought now, or have you been working a little bit parallel on both of them then?
I've been working on parallel.
Okay.
On both, yeah.
Interesting. That is also something that really fascinates me, trying to juggle different kind of soundtracks as well. In this case, I don't think you can say much about the other game. I mean, are they similar, for example, in style?
Not in a sense. It's more like this fantasy type of, more like action RPG fantasy type of game, and more Voidwrought was more like metroidvania, sci-fi, cosmic horror type of game.
Yeah. But yeah, considering that, I think it's better for us to just deep dive into the soundtrack a little bit more. It was super interesting getting to know you a little bit more surrounding where you come from, what you've been doing, all up until this point, in a speedrun version, of course. Because we can't sit and talk here forever, because that would be very detailed, and I wonder how many people would love to hear the details. Some people might really love it, but I think it's better for us to go into details surrounding the game that we're going to discuss today.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so considering the game that we're going to talk about today is the game Voidwrought. And for people who've been following me on my Twitch stream, this is a game that I streamed on my birthday in order to just go through and play a little bit and trying to understand a little bit more. It's always fun to explore the music while playing the game, understanding how it kind of portrays the game itself, because that's usually what it does. But at the same time, listening to the soundtrack itself. But Voidwrought was developed by the Swedish studio Powersnake, and the game was released on the 24th of October back in 2024, so it's quite new. The game was released, or is released, on PC and Nintendo Switch. Considering the game style of Voidwrought, it has the hand-drawn graphics. It is a 2D action platforming game with the theme, like you said here, of cosmic horror. Basically, you go around and explore vast ruins of a civilization that was struck while striking down these gods that dwell there. You gain powers, you find forgotten artifacts that are just laying around, or you just unlock, basically. And you expand your shrine that you have in this world. And with that, we dive into the first track of the week, which is one of my picks, and it is Barren Commonwealth. First track of the week, Barren Commonwealth. And for everybody who's new listening in on this episode as their first episode, for every track that we're listening to, I'm going to have what I called an emotion. It's basically me, I'm at home, shutting down everything electric except the PC, and I just close my eyes, put my headphones on, and listen to the track. Only that specific track, until I start feeling something, and then I note these feelings down. And my emotion for Barren Commonwealth, a calm and eerie track. The string instrument puts pressure on the listener, making it feel a bit dangerous. I hear a choir in the background on the more intense parts of this song, which creates some sort of threat while listening. I feel the imminent threat while I listen to this track. And halfway through this, the song becomes a bit more set on the guitar part. And this guitar, it really brings me back hard to my young age, and specifically to the game of Diablo. So, that was my emotion on this track.
That sounds about right.
It sounds about right. I want to hear a little bit on this. This is the first area of the game, the Commonwealth. It is very empty, it kind of is desolate, and still it's kind of much of a ruin, so it feels like the loss of a civilization, which is also part of this game. You're basically returning into something that is once lost.
Yeah, basically.
It is weird, but when you're playing the game, it makes sense.
Yeah, I really tried to have like this, like the echo, like you were listening of an echo of a forgotten civilization, and also this is one of the first tracks I did, And
Okay.
I tried to, for Voidwrought in general, I tried to combine much different folk instrumentation from different cultures and some scales, at least to my up to my skill. But yeah, it was like in this song there's guitar, there's some Chinese violin erhu, and there are some Middle Eastern instrumentation as well. Like I really like to make, like, you listen to it, you think about some culture, but you can't exactly pinpoint what.
It is a fusion of some sort.
Yeah, that I tried to reach, and you were actually absolutely spot on with the Diablo comment, because Matt Uelmen, I really like his stuff, and it I started to play the guitar for the song, and I was like, okay, this is a bit like Tristram, but I just go with it.
No, that's exactly what I felt when the guitar, because it's not a long section of the track. First of all, we're not specifically going to listen to that section while listening to the music, because that guitar part comes right at the end, and this is a 5-minute song.
Yeah.
But for people that want to listen specifically on this, we'll hear it either in the background of this episode, or I recommend everybody to listen to the full track on Spotify. Or purchase the soundtrack, of course, and listen to Barren Commonwealth in order to just get that more isolated. So it really brought me back, and I really like that because it's so iconic, considering Tristram, the first strings that just pulls on it. And I kind of was there again when I started hearing the hard guitar in this sense.
Yeah, no wonder. It wasn't like intentionally at first, but when I started to play, I was like, okay, well, this is that, but I don't mind because that's cool.
But do you ever really kind of get into things like, oh, I'm too much like something, or do you like to make this kind of a homage or reference to something when you make music?
It depends, really. If it makes sense and it feels right, I think there's nothing to be ashamed. And I think if you some composers really maybe too much emphasize, for at least for the younger composers, like be original, and to the point like people don't know what to do because they just want to be original, but they always think that they can't be original enough. But yeah, if there's a place for it and it feels right, I don't mind.
I mean, considering also the music has been a big part of everyone's life for a really long time. I'm not just talking about our generation. We're talking about multiple generations back. I mean, thousands of years back. Trying to be original today feels hard. I mean, there's a lot of music being made already.
Yeah.
And the more time passes, the more music will, of course, be created.
Yeah, I think really good advice is just do what you do, but there's always fine line if you like plagiarize. How do you say the word?
Plagiarize.
Yeah, my English is somewhere sometimes all over the place, but yeah, it's like you can. There's a fine line sometimes, but sometimes it's just something that works.
But at the same time, we're kind of in an age, even with our generation, we're in an age of sampling as well.
True.
Considering we have so much more people making, it almost feels like a remix to some extent. Like there's a whole lot of text or lyrics to something, but I've heard the music and the rhythms already.
Yeah. I think especially if you listen to radio, some old songs from 70s and 80s are just sampled and with new lyrics and just being brought to a different genre and stuff like that. Definitely.
But yet again, returning a little bit back to Voidwrought here, when you got into this project back in 2021, around 2021, what was the initial thought here? You reached out to them on Twitter, you started making some sort of example like, oh, this is how I think about it? Or did you just post old music again to them? And it's like, hey, does this work? Is this something you're looking for?
They had this document with the type of stuff they would like. And they were sort of emphasizing like, we don't want this like your typical orchestral type of action music or stuff like that. They were like searching stuff for the folk from the folk influences and something like that. And with Whispered, I've like incorporated Japanese folk stuff for a really long time. Really long time with the band, and I really love folk influences like from every culture. It's I think it's so cool to use with the different genres. So it really felt home for me to start writing for Voidwrought, and the vision for the soundtrack got quite clear quite fast.
Ooh, interesting. So considering the vision of the soundtrack itself, I mean, usually when I talk to composers, and depending on which type of game it is and so on, we usually talk about the red thread throughout the soundtrack, having something similarities and trying to kind of convey the full spectrum of the game with this red thread. But Voidwrought makes the red thread quite hard due to the fact that you have so many different areas within this game, and they are not all alike to each other.
Yeah, for sure.
So considering the vision that you were talking about, that were easy to view this vision, was it due to the fact that you had a clear vision on the different kind of music you wanted for each and every of these areas, or was it a great vision you got together with the developers, together with your style?
I think it was a little bit of both, but basically the mood was the setting factor, like what is the big picture of things. And even with there are some metal songs on the soundtrack as well. I actually didn't, at the beginning I was thinking like, okay, no metal for this soundtrack, but then I started to try some stuff, and I was like, okay, I can. This is something that could work nicely.
And then you got addicted.
Yeah, the folk influences are also present, like the Middle Eastern folk influences and from other parts of the world are present also in the boss themes, like metal songs and stuff like that. And I also wanted to create this huge sense of space to the soundtrack. Like make it really echoey, make it sound vast and isolated. Had that sort of feeling throughout the whole soundtrack.
Considering all the different kind of folk lore and folk music that you kind of took in as inspiration for this, was there any specific folk style that was harder to work with, considering if you had the vision clear?
Not in particular. I think the hardest thing was combining some elements in a sense that would still make sense, if you know what I mean. Like it was like when James Cameron asked James Horner to make soundtrack for Avatar.
Yeah.
And he said basically like, I want you to make music that's never been heard before. And then he made it, and the Cameron was like, what the fuck is this shit? And basically he did what was asked, and then the Avatar, the whole soundtrack was ditched because it was too otherworldly. So
it was so bonkers.
Yeah, I was like, I think I was never quite close to that, but sometimes I was thinking like combining different scales from like Asian or Middle Eastern and trying overlapping the instruments. I was like, will this just sound silly, or not having like the music doesn't have a home in a sense? But I think I got the hang of it. But yeah, it was a really interesting project, and so it's so cool to write for really different kind of areas and bosses and stuff like that. Yeah.
I'm guessing even working with this type of game as well, like you said, there's a lot of different areas in this game, which will also kind of widen your own kind of aspect and horizon on making music as well. Was there anything you felt like, oh, I didn't know much about this, or maybe you didn't know anything at all and you needed to kind of teach yourself in order to make this shine even more?
You mean some special type of influence or stuff
either
like
that or a specific instrument maybe you tried out now with this soundtrack?
Yeah, I tried many different types of instruments and just like to stretch the boundaries of the instruments a lot. It's like like adding distortion to some some old whistle that's used by some village to village in one culture, and just putting some insane stuff all around. I was like, I was also trying to destroy the notion of worrying about am I being authentic in a sense, because I'm not representing any specific culture in a sense. I'm just mashing up things to make this world breathe.
Exactly. That is also pretty interesting as well. I mean, bringing the heritage of an instrument sometimes. Maybe somebody would be like, if you're crushing a flute, people that love flute and have been living their whole life with a flute might be like, oh, you're destroying the flute heritage.
Yeah.
And you're like, but it sounds good, right? They're like, yeah, okay, it sounds good.
yeah, basically just like trying much different type of instruments and just trying to make something insane or something that works.
I actually got one question prior to this episode as well from one of my followers over on Twitch. As I was streaming this game, she joined in and wanted to ask a question, and I've refurbished it a little bit, and I think it's way better to take it right here at the beginning before I've asked too many questions.
Okay, cool.
But considering the art style of this game, being widely commented on being similar to a game known as Hollow Knight, the music is somewhat different. However, due to the previous named game, some might have expected something similar music-wise, or would even comment that they have similarities. Did this knowledge of the art style and so on, and being a metroidvania, affect any of the ways in how you approached making music for this game?
Not at all, I think. Like, I really like Christopher Locke's work on Hollow Knight. It's really, really good, but I think it was emphasized quite early on that we don't want piano and we don't want similar type of setting in a sense. So that was in mind in a way, in the opposite way, like doing something that doesn't sound like Hollow Knight.
Now, some of these tracks where I'm listening through them, it feels like not similarities per se, but they kind of convey the same kind of emotion to me, like being the desolate area, or being the world is being grim and so on. I mean, considering being a cosmic horror is not going to be a pleasant feeling. So to me, it kind of has similarities, but I definitely hear what you're emphasizing at being very separate soundtracks and trying to move away from different kind of, like you said, the piano. But I'm guessing you still have some piano in some of these tracks. It feels like you did. Or maybe you didn't.
Yeah, there is. I think there's piano in one track. I think there's piano in Mirrorways. I don't remember having it in other tracks. Maybe at the background somewhere, but not in the prominent way like it's in that song.
No, but it's always interesting for me to kind of convey and understand the whole shebang, but also deep diving into specific tracks and so on. This is why I find this so much fun to listen through all these kind of tracks in an episode, because it conveys a little bit more while understanding the functionality that we're getting at with this game.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy these things.
Yeah, me too. I think best game music in general, it invokes so many thoughts and emotions. I often listen to game soundtracks even I haven't played the game at all. It's like just when some new game comes, I might listen to the soundtrack for a year before I even fire up the game.
Interesting. But considering you as a composer as well, I mean, you're listening to things all day long, either working on it or doing something with it, basically. I rarely hear a composer having time to listen to other work.
Yeah, I listen when I go out with the dog or just biking or just going outside. That's basically the only time I listen to music. Sometimes when I'm writing something, and but not in a I would like to listen more music in a way that I would take an album, I would listen it, just focus on listening it from first track to the last. And it could be like album from a band or a soundtrack or stuff like that. But usually I still just hear stuff from here and there.
But considering that you're listening in on other people's work and so on, is there anything else you usually tend to take from that? Are you analyzing the music, or do you just take in the music and enjoying it? Or is it more work?
I'm analyzing it all the time, but I don't want to always, but I still do.
Is it hard to switch that off for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's I can still enjoy it, but I try to not analyze too much, but I still end up doing it.
I mean, trying is good. It's usually what I say. We need to understand that we have a weakness in order to work with it.
Yeah,
so,
true.
I think it's lovely that you're at least trying to do something, make a change and so on. But considering that you're analyzing it and so on, is there any other thing you would like to get out of it? I mean, is it that you're analyzing it and understanding the music, how they made it? Is that what you're trying to get out of it, or?
Sometimes, and just like maybe just admiring also, in a sense, like, oh man, that thing is really good, and how those things come together. That's so cool. And really often when I'm listening to some music, I get inspired and I feel like I want to do something similar, in a sense. Like I want to try stuff like this, like stuff I'm listening, and that's really inspirational, and that also had gotten me some of my best ideas.
Interesting. And moving on a little segue, I mean, trying to get inspired and so on, I don't feel like the Middle Eastern Egyptian kind of style is a main priority of yourself. So the next track that we're going to listen to feels like it has a lot of inspiration from that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So we're going to listen to the track The Pustulant Prince. Enjoy. Fading out the music of the Pustulant Prince. The start of this song really puts pressure of something. That almost feels like a circus. Which is definitely not what we have in this game. But that is followed up by what feels more like this Egyptian/Middle Eastern style of music. There's a lot of pressure going on in this track, while multiple tracks are going on at once. This track definitely puts on the right situation of presenting what this boss battle is. And in the 2-minute mark of this song, we're also getting like a 20-second solo, which is to me, through fire and flames, but on flute, question mark? It feels very out of context, but I would love to hear why this 20-second thing is happening, Johnny.
I think you do you mean the end of the song when it starts to start getting faster?
Yeah, you have some sort of this. It feels like this Egyptian flute thing going on, and it's about at the 2-minute mark. It's really about. It's like it's the start of Fire and Flames.
Yeah,
it feels very out of context to this song, So it feels like there's a specific reason why this is.
I have to check which part you mean, because I'm not entirely sure if it's
So if
the
you go
end.
into it is 2-minute mark, you will specifically hear it. It's like 2:01 or something like that.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah, the bar mitzvah. Yeah. Yeah, I think the song was about. I really wanted to make the song sound like decadent, indulgent, like party, in a sense, because the lore of the prince, if I remember correctly, was that he ultimately ate all his court in his greed for God's blood, and stuff like that. So I really wanted to make song like festive, but in a most horrible way possible.
Considering making something horrible and so on, you really sparked on the festive part. It feels like a party, like a feast of some sort. But
yeah,
when I was listening to this, I kind of felt a little bit of the boss battle itself, because it kind of conveyed, like I wrote here, it really conveyed the situation that is presented in this boss. I felt the pressure. I did so many things wrong while listening to this music and having the boss going around, because when you have this song, it is a boss battle with the Pustulant Prince on a falling platform.
Yeah.
So you have there's a lot of animation going on, but he's kind of static towards all this, but the music just sets the mood, really.
Thank you. It was like, I think the contradiction is also the strong point there. Like, you're fighting for your life, but there is this festive music going on.
Yeah. And the looks of this boss is not festive at all. I mean, it feels like an anvil with a horror body.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so I was doing the song even before I saw the boss. It was like I would think I was halfway done of the song when they showed me the boss.
And was that the first view of the boss itself, or did you have any concept art of the boss?
I had some concept art, but I think the final design was quite different. That was on my mind, and also in the concept art, if I remember correctly. But yeah.
But you did have this in like background story of the prince then?
Yes.
Prior. Yeah?
Yes. The Voidwrought team was amazing, because they had this like lore bible basically for the game. I had this huge database of concept art, stories, even color palettes and everything.
And that's awesome.
Yeah, that's for a like gold mine for a composer for sure.
But considering this section now, I'm listening to it myself as we speak. Was there any specific reason why you have that one in?
I wanted the song to have this like crescendo in the end, like it's falling this crazy mode for a while, like you're listening like, okay, what's happening now? I wanted to have a bit of like that, but I think it's up to the listeners to decide if it's like too distinct or not. It's just like getting a bit crazy there.
yeah, definitely. In this boss battle, you're on this falling platform and so on. Considering this is a 2-minute and 41-second long song, is this something that what we're listening to, which is on the OST, is this the full track that is looped, or is there more dynamicism to this that you have working with layers and so on in this soundtrack?
No, I think all the songs are simple loops. And that was also what was wished for in the beginning. Like everything, it basically starts to loop, and when the way I compiled the soundtrack, I just let the intro section maybe go on for a little while, then fading out the song.
Okay, so this little Through Fire and Flames section with the flute could theoretically be heard multiple times then during this boss battle.
Yeah, it's possible. If it goes on.
Maybe people really love that one. They want to listen to that specific part all the time.
Yeah, could be, but it's a tough fight at least.
It is.
Nowadays, at least.
Yeah, it is. In the beginning, there's so many things happening, and he deals quite a hefty pile of damage.
Yeah.
So I died. I think that's the boss I died the most on.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
I think me too.
Oh, so you did play the game yourself then?
Yeah, I played almost through. I also used development cheats to access many bosses, but most of the game I played through. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, that's always interesting as well, considering sometimes composers either just send the music off and the studio themselves have somebody that works in the music, or sometimes the composers work in the music and everything themselves, but they don't want to play and understand every little bits and pieces with the battle and so on. But you're more hands-on then.
Yeah, I think for game music composer to make the best work he can, it's almost mandatory to play the game.
Yeah,
it can be debatable, but I think it's especially me, because I love games so much. I play every night. I play many different types of games also, and
which is also great in my opinion.
Yeah, and it really makes me appreciate the music from different types of games a lot. And playing game myself, it's especially with some areas in Voidwrought, I was so glad that I get to play the game before I wrote the soundtrack, because sometimes it has been with some previous projects that okay, we need this song for this area, and then I make it, and then I try the game, and I'm like, okay, this doesn't fit at all. And then it's there and it's done.
Yeah, it is. But considering how you feel surrounding this, did you feel yourself that you're really on point on these, or do you sometimes feel like, oh, I wasn't too fond of this, but the developers themselves really enjoy the track?
With some previous games, I think so. But with Voidwrought, it was basically, it went quite hand in hand.
Okay.
In a sense that I made something, and when I thought that this really works, it really worked for the team as well. There were some songs that really took a while, like the song for the safe room, the shrines where you can save the game, and that was the hardest song to make, maybe on the soundtrack.
I don't remember exactly. It wasn't like the Chamber of Solitude or something like that.
Chamber
Reflection.
Chambers of Reflection. Harry Potter and the Chambers of Reflection. But yeah, basically that one. I think I made maybe 6 or 7 revisions of that.
Okay.
But not because the developers asked. I was just like struggling, because I was like, first came up this like really Dark Souls type of like Firelink shrine, really mellow, really somber string type of stuff. And I was like, maybe that's not it. And then I went to some movies type of music, lending some chords from Thomas Newman. And then I went to all over the place. But basically, the first idea was the best.
So you kind of just returned back as like, yeah, I liked you the most.
Yeah, I returned that, and I added some layers that it needed, and then it really clicked in the place. I'm like, okay, this is it. But it was a hard one to make, because that will be a song often that people will hear quite a lot if they're just hanging around in safe rooms, and also it's a really distinct. I think in games it's really, the safe room music is really important. Like if you think games like Resident Evil or stuff like that, the safe room music really sets the tone and like mood for the game so much, so I really put some extra attention to that.
But is it due to the fact that you have this information that you are able to put extra into it, because it is to you as well and to the gamers more important?
Yeah, well, what do you mean, like extra information?
I mean, considering, like you said, in Resident Evil with the safe zone room, you have this distinct sound.
Yeah.
You have identified that it is important to have this structure of music in a safe zone. So, like, is it due to the fact that you are a gamer yourself, or is it more because you have this classical background as well, considering the understanding of music?
No, I think that comes from playing the games, basically, and feeling stuff when you play them. It's like, I remember first time I heard safe room music of Resident Evil, and I was like, okay, why there is this beautiful, like, melancholic piano all of a sudden in the middle of Raccoon City with the zombies and stuff like that. and that really sticks with you, that feeling. And when you get to the safe room, you hear that music, which really, it hints that...
You know you're safe.
Yeah, it hints that you're safe, but in games like Voidwrought and games like Resident Evil, it also hints that you're not completely safe. But yeah, it's one of the best genres to write, I think, safe room music.
In consideration also to this, I had another question surrounding this understanding of yours as well. Since you've been connected to music for such a long time, and especially in a young age, when you're making music today, do you try to go more with a gut feeling of what you feel is right for a project or a musical style? Or do you lean towards your studies of understanding music and like, oh, this is how you compose?
I think it always comes down to like mood and story and stuff like that. Sometimes especially when I'm making, it's a good way to composer to put some restrictions on yourself.
Okay.
In a sense, like if you're making a song and you're having a hard time, then you just decide, okay, this song starts with drums. You just make that decision. And then you start with drums, and usually that really helps to set out the rest of the song. And you might do revision later, who knows, but yeah, it's like... It's always like mood first, and especially with game music, it's like what's the purpose of the song regarding the context area or the character theme or boss theme or it's sometimes with specific cases I might like if I'm thinking like, okay, this song needs this type of chord progression for sure, then I have to come from the music theory kind of angle to make that happen. But yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Considering that, I think is really interesting trying to understand a little bit where it kind of comes from as well. I mean, with somebody who has such a long time within music and at such a young age, I think you're coming from another perspective from people that might come into not just video game music, but music teachings and even teaching themselves and having that more of a gut feeling. You still kind of have an understanding of both of them, even if you want to go with like, this is how I was taught in order to compose, and when you feel like, oh, I can't really find anything, I go with a gut feeling. We should.
Yeah, I'm definitely more like gut feeling type of guy. Because I know some theory, but not too much. Like when I was learning acoustic guitar when I was a kid, I hated theory. But it was solely because they didn't. I think the style they were teaching it didn't resonate with me. I didn't have the sense that it was useful, and only later on I've gotten a bit to the theory, especially with my band. That was been really a huge thing to learn writing there. But yeah, I'm definitely more like I just write what comes to my mind.
Oh. So basically the take from this is we're going to do a shout out to all musical teachers. Make theory fun again. yeah, like make it also, if you want to teach theory and there are bored kids, take some radio hit and explain how it's done. Explain where the chords are, why the chords are there and stuff like that. Then you have those kids hooked. Not just like taking some old books and showing okay, this is how it's been done like hundreds of years. This is how Mozart did it. Who's that?
Yeah.
You need to listen to the classic, kids.
yeah, it's great to listen to the classic and understand classic, but
right classics.
Yeah, it's
for
great.
The kids.
Yeah, but for the kids, it's best to approach from another angle.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, having a more playful understanding.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the topic of classical and radio specifically, this is another great segue to move into the next track of this week. And this is the repository of the unknown. fading out the eerie music of Repository of the Unknown. And my emotion for this track is radio shatter, minimalistic start, mysterious soundscape that is accompanied to strings. It is almost like I'm listening to a dream. Overall, the track is minimalistic, but around the 3-minute mark, it becomes very eerie with a strong choir and some rhythmic parts. The radio shatter is something that follows out throughout this whole song, though. Still, placing this sense of being foreign. The area this track is played is very alien. It's like a ship that has crashed down on this planet and currently is doing a lot of research. Like I said, this track sounded very foreign to the other two tracks that we've been listening to.
Oh, yes.
And adding that kind of radio thing really was like the cherry on the top.
Yeah, that was my intention. For me, this is maybe my favorite track from the soundtrack. It's like they wanted this theme for a library with all the knowledge of the world.
Yeah.
And I started to approach it in a sense that how I would has this feeling that there is much like information stored there. So I took some samples of astronauts talking and I put the audio backwards and just repeated that throughout the song. That basically there is in your left headphone you can hear another astronaut, and in the right you can hear another, and they're just talking gibberish.
Interesting. It kind of feels like Remedy, going back to Remedy with the hiss. So having the mystical voices just trying to mess with your brain.
yeah, and also I tried to really like have this sense of discovery in the song. Because there is some brass with almost heroic overtones and stuff like that. I really wanted to make player feel that he's entering something grand and just discovering something really significant.
Yeah, when I found this place in the game, when you're talking about the library, that is not exactly what I felt when I entered this.
Yeah.
Like I said, the area of itself, it has this alien structure. It feels like a spaceship, lab environment, and feels very mystic. You don't really know what's going on here. And considering the enemies that are around these parts, I'm not going to spoil anything. That's why I'm keeping it very generic to some extent.
Yeah.
It kind of brings this kind of weirdness to it, just much like the track. So for me, this track is very spot on what the environment is given. I don't get the really grand vibe that you were talking about myself, but I can understand where it comes from.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me it really nailed the vibe I was looking for, the best for it. And I also wanted to like, okay, sense of knowledge, what you think about what instruments you think when you have like knowledge, you think maybe something, maybe woodwinds, maybe clarinets and stuff like that. And I started to combine those with some synths and trying to like create some crazy sounding instrument. Like you're hearing the classical instrument in the background, but there is much more stuff tied to that. And yeah, it was really cool song to make.
I like how you present it as like which instrument has knowledge. Are we talking about a smart instrument?
Yeah,
then?
maybe. Just like it's these stupid things where you like you have some connections in your head. Okay, so these instruments, like for many people, like strong brass instruments, like trumpets, and French horns, stuff like that. They emphasize war. For many. Yeah,
they evoke some sort of emotion to people because, well, a French horn, you usually tended to hear those during war.
Yeah.
And so it kind of became representative to that.
Yeah, and through films and stuff like that is also been present. So there is like this sense of the way we've grown up with the music that we listen and the films we watch and stuff like that. It really creates some connotations to here and there with the instrument choices and music. And yeah.
But considering how we have this kind of knowledge and information as as we who enjoy this media, being Voidwrought, there are some expectations, of course, on the music, etc. But do you feel like you can sometimes challenge that expectation yourself, or do you feel like it will kind of not portray the situation the best?
I think it's cool. Just sometimes, like in Pustulant Prince, you're fighting for your life and there is party going. Like have had those contradictions in a sense. Also, like I think Akira Yamaoka is the guy who did Silent Hill soundtrack and Silent Hill sound design. He's really good of making things you don't expect to hear.
Okay.
And those are especially for horror genre, that's really effective because you're like you can't predict like, okay, that monster is coming at me, but then it has this really strange clicking sound or something like that. You wouldn't expect to come from a monster looking like that. And so it can be same with music. Sometimes it's really good to like smash expectations. But there is a place for it for sure.
I think trying to find this place is also one of the hardest thing to do, considering making music. Usually one of the biggest things I usually tend to talk or reference to is usually like, oh, I can make this soundtrack, but somebody else might say, oh, it pulled me out of the experience. I wasn't immersed with this.
Yeah.
So considering when you have these kind of, do you want to smash the expectation or not, it touches a little bit on an interesting subject here. And from your take, it sounds a little bit like we should crush that expectation, but only at specific situations.
Yeah, I think there's a place for it, but it has to be. You have to be careful, but then again, nothing cool happens without taking risks.
Definitely. And it's always something you convey over time. I mean, even if a developer or composer says like, oh, this is an amazing track, the generic or the average listener can say like, oh, it's shit.
Yeah, true.
to speak in really black and white terms.
Yeah.
But of course, all different kind of music has its place, of course, but it's only when it kind of grinds these gears it becomes problematic, in my opinion, considering music.
Yeah, it really depends.
Yeah, I mean, it's subjective. I mean, what I like could be different from you like, of course.
Yeah, and it's almost like it's with every band and every artist. It's like you make a song and you think that it's the best song you've ever done. And then some fan or some fans or many fans are like, this is the shittest song you've ever done.
Definitely.
It can really differ in a sense, like what you like and what people like.
Yeah. And of course, one thing to keep in mind here in order to portray a good picture here, even if that super fan might think it's really bad, that song might reach out to another audience that gets pulled into, it's like, oh, this is the best band ever.
Yeah.
At the same time. So we need to kind of have this contrast as well. And this is why I think talking about this is really important.
Yeah. And it's like when the artist or a musician or a band just like renews itself, like does something different they've never done before.
Yeah.
It's I think it's almost necessary in a sense.
Okay.
to keep things fresh at some point, because if you listen to some bands doing, like, for example, Opeth, I don't know if you know the metal band Opeth. Like,
I know of them.
Yeah, like progressive metal and rock, and I think they peaked with their metal album Watershed that they made. Basically, it was at that point their last metal album. Then they went to progressive rock. Now they're doing metal again. But yeah, for me, it sounded. The whole album sounded to me like, okay, this is the peak of this band. This is the peak of Opeth. They can't top this in a sense. And then they started to make progressive rock, and it totally made sense to me. I was like, this is it felt for me like natural step. And but still, so many fans were angry, like, oh, where is the growling? Where are the heavy guitars? Where is my metal? And I was like, they're chilling. They're doing what they're supposed to do.
But it's always so interesting considering how people, and especially bands in this case, kind of move on, how they portray themselves over time. There was this like other time where all the kind of symphonic fantasy bands started making sci-fi music all of a sudden. I was like, what the hell happened here? And here you made a sci-fi cosmic horror game.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you progressed through your fantasy phase already?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
You're doing it the other way around then.
Yeah. I'm having all the phases at the same time.
And how does that make you feel?
Confused.
Just how we all feel while playing a cosmic horror game. No, but considering moving back a little bit here to the track itself, I mean, one of the things that I felt you were talking about, like a knowledgeable instrument, and considering that repository of the unknown kind of portrays that we have something that we don't really know about, and then we have this minimalistic take of the track itself, which kind of feels like you can try and make something yourself out of this. This is kind of a baseline. Was this also something that was intended for the track itself, considering this place in the game?
Yeah, I think because most huge aspect of the game was like abandonment and isolation, and have this like sense of void, sense of space. I think that resonated also with the repository of the unknown. Just make it the area sound like it has dignity. And it has like a purpose, but you're not sure about it. Like what it is.
Yeah. Considering that you do have a different kind of a soundscape in this, it kind of comes in like, I would say like a glimpse of memory to talk in a visual aspect. Nothing happening in the gameplay, of course. I'm just talking about the music specifically. But you have these things coming in, like the shatter. You have like these eerie kind of things that kind of almost vibrate to some extent. Is that also because they're so different to each other? Was that also intended kind of thing going on surrounding what you interpret in the game?
Yeah, because when I saw the concept art or the screenshots of the area, I was like, okay, this needs something different. Okay. Now I try to really make something alien. And that's because, and I'm really happy that the place was quite well hidden in the game, in a sense, because when you find it, I think the song conveys all the right things.
Yeah, it does. I felt a little bit out of place when I entered this. I knew it from the name. That's one of the things I really liked about this. The track names that we have are actually on things in the game. They're not called like My Greatest Fear. It's like, what?
Yeah.
So that is one thing I really liked. So if you have an area that you really like the music for, then you can just click on that name and you have specifically that track there.
Yeah.
Was that also, did you name them yourself, or was it the developers that named them and you just followed?
I named them myself, and then I showed them to developer, just like to check out that if these are consistent with the vision of you.
Yeah.
And it's like hardest track to name was the Gold for Eternal Solitude. That's the theme for the Grand Bazaar. And I think that place, it's also one of my favorite tracks. I really liked it. It was really, really nice to do. I think it's 6 minutes long, or say maybe almost 7 minutes long, but it was.
I had a really hard time selecting tracks for this episode myself. Holy crap!
Yeah, there's much. There's a bunch, but yeah.
No, but considering all the music that we've listened to so far, we listened to the Commonwealth, the Barren Commonwealth that I picked, and then we had the Pustulant Prince that you picked, and Repository of Known is also one of the tracks that you picked. And considering all the tracks that you picked, we're going to listen to the next one soon, but before that, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the surrounding tracks that you did pick. Are these your favorite tracks that you've picked from the soundtrack, or do you have any specific background behind these tracks as well?
Well, the repository one, the last one we listened, it's my favorite tracks, and I think the Pustulant Prince is an interesting boss theme.
Yeah,
it's not your traditional boss theme, so I think it was nice to talk about that, then there is the one song which will come later on, which is also one of my favorites in a sense. But yeah, it was hard for me too, because some songs, there are a lot of thought that went into the soundtrack, and I had hard time, just so much stuff to say, and I'm always like enthusiastic about music and how it's done, so I could ramble forever for everything.
I love it. No, but considering when I was going to pick tracks, I was a little bit puzzled in what type, because first of all, when I started listening to it, I was like, this is such a rock and roll album. There's not that many calm, easy pieces, but then when I started to structure it a little bit more, I was like, it's more calm than having this metal vibe to it.
Yes, for sure. And I'm really happy about that, because I think with this soundtrack, compared to my last big one, the Vigil, The Longest Night, I think with this soundtrack I really grasped the mood and the background aspect of the music well, because that's also been a big challenge for me to make music good, but not too on your face, just invoking the right kind of feeling, but not like distracting you about.
Yeah. Something that kind of conveys and understands the environment you're in.
Yeah.
But at the same time, considering, the Pustulant Prince was to enact a little bit of how the prince himself were. Considering the Barren Commonwealth, it was a little bit about how barren it is. The repository of the unknown was a little bit more about the mystery going on. And considering the music, it feels like you're trying to convey what's important all the time.
Yeah.
Surrounding. Is that always something you want to think about when you make music for a video game specifically? Like focus on the important aspect of what you're trying to convey?
Yeah, I think for sure, because the core, it all comes down to story and background for every concept to have like this, always trying to convey importance, but really trying to maintain some sort of, like you were talking about, the red thread throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, and it seems, for me, I didn't read too much of the information and lore. I experienced the game and what kind of happened throughout while I was playing. And of course, there's a lot of information and lore pieces you can read and get to know the characters and gods and so on with this game.
I think regarding importance, I think I composed for the lore more than the area for itself, in a sense that sometimes I didn't have too much lore for some things, but most of the majority of the music had like story or some lore behind that, and I think that's really important, because then this music sounds like it has a purpose. Like if you don't know the lore, you listen to the music and you think, okay, there is something important happening, and that's enough to get you immersed.
Yeah, but sometimes it feels like the main important part could be like a character and so on, but at the same time, an area can be a character as well.
Yeah, of course. That's like that's why I was talking about the safe room music.
Exactly. That's exactly what I wanted to get back at. But yeah, considering that and considering main characters and what's important, I would love to hear a little bit more right after we listen to the next track, because that one is very special to me. So let's listen to The Mirrorways. fading out the minimalistic Mirrorways. And as I said, this is a minimalistic track. This track is one of the few that feels like it's trying to bring back some harmony to the entire soundtrack. The track is a combination between distance and sharing space with the previous repository of the unknown of being alien, foreign to some extent. The track does overall feel sad, a sorrow overwhelming it. The area, it feels very spacious, yet very empty. But it is one of the brightest places at the same time, bringing warmth and calmness. Considering when we talked a little bit about the main character, like being a place or a boss, etc., the Mirrorways plays a very specific part, and this is kind of a little bit of a out of context, like hidden area, I would say, in order to keep it still not spoil. But there's some things you can have in this, and I would like to know, considering the main character in the Mirrorways, is this specifically for the character you meet there? Or is it due to the fact of the surrounding the environment of this space?
This was definitely for the space. I didn't know about the character. Only later on I learned about the character.
Okay.
And it was like... this was also a song I was considering for a safe room theme at some point.
Oh, okay.
And it has similar type of architecture like the Chambers of Reflection. And similar type of feeling, and I also used similar type of instrumentation in both of the songs.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, basically I just wanted to create something somber that has the sense of like, well, mirrors reflecting. There is a delay in the much of the instruments, and there is almost like it has this I would say almost Final Fantasy kind of feel, or a bit of a, well, maybe not Final Fantasy in a sense, maybe more, I think this is the closest one to Hollow Knight, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. You had the more somber, grim kind of thing, but at the same time, like I've noticed, and this is kind of, I didn't notice it while I was playing the game. I was just jumping around, falling down, and so on, being crazy.
Yeah.
But when I listened to this by itself, that's when I started getting this kind of warmth and calmness to it, understanding the track a little bit more. This is not something I anticipated or did while playing the game.
Cool.
So it kind of grew on me.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I think I really got the nice. It's a nice track to listen on loop because it is. It has this kind of embracing feeling with synths and ambient I used, and there is it's not intimidating song.
Definitely not. But like you said, you had this kind of delay to the, it was the strings, right?
Well, many instruments, like piano has delay, and the synths, and yeah, I can't remember right now, but yeah.
Okay. Considering this mirror is basically, well, mirroring, being a shadow of yourself. Did you ever have any expectation of having like some strings say something that others answer in a similar manner to extent? Because it feels more like they're dancing around by themselves at the moment on this.
Yeah, I had some ideas like in the beginning, but then I started to write the song, and I was just like not trying to overthink in a sense, just like seeing where it goes. Yeah. But that's a cool idea, like having even more emphasis on the mirror aspect of it. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Would be a cool idea, but it's too late.
Yeah, of course it's too late, but it kind of feels like interesting to have this. It almost becomes like this kind of musical kind of vibe to it then, if it would have been like an answer to it. I'm thinking about the old Disney musical Fantasia. Like that one has this grimness to it as well. I think it's almost one of the darkest Disney things ever.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it can traumatize kids.
Definitely. But also the Mirrorways is this very spacious area. It's kind of brings light into the darkness because it's very lit up. It has these kind of castle structures. I almost got the vibe that it was some sort of observatory, but there's another observatory in this world, so I was like, no, it kind of doesn't feel that way, but you're still bringing some items to this area. And one other thing is that there's actually a portal leading us to this space. So I guess that's the kind of mirror way. You go through the mirror in order to get there.
Yeah, could be. This was one of the first songs I also started to write. It was like, was it like I started to write this and I stopped halfway of the song, and then I finished this like year and a half later.
Okay. How did it feel to return to a track that you started working on and then you returned to it so long after? Did you have any feelings like, oh shit, I can make this better?
Yeah, that's the best case scenario.
Okay.
That you return to a track and you're like, okay, I can make this better. But if you return to it and you're like, don't feel anything about the track, then it's always harder to continue. But I do that quite often, that I start something and I finish it much later.
Okay. And what was it? Any specific reason why you stopped working on it, or is that usually a way for you to structure your work?
I think it's a bit of both, but with this one it was like I wanted to see more of the world.
Okay.
Like see more of the space, because I only had maybe one picture of the Mirrorways to work with, and then later I got more information about the location. But yeah.
Interesting. Considering when you worked on this, we talked a little bit about you have the lore Bible, but you also had a little bit of concept art and so on. Which one, considering all the information that you did get over the course of time with this, when did you feel like you had the kind of best vision of what you wanted the soundtrack to be? Was it, because you already stated that you got the vision quite fast.
Yeah, I think I got the main idea of how I wanted the soundtrack to sound like, in a sense, like this vague idea in my head that really that crystallized as I went through the project. But in the end, I was like, there were definitely some songs that are in similar worlds, and then there are songs that don't belong to those worlds. So there is there are maybe, I would say, 3 different worlds on the soundtrack that don't necessarily correlate with the areas, but more like the musical side of things.
Yeah.
I always try to vision, and I really often have a vision for a project or anything. If I start on something and if I have some bit of information, I'm always inspired right away, and if I'm lucky, the vision makes sense and the developer likes it too.
Yeah, but considering that you have vision and so on, are you the type of composer that gets stuck on the visions, or do you like to have it more fluent and dynamic over the course of time as you move along with the project itself?
It depends. Like sometimes when I have a vision for something and the developer might be, we want something completely different, and then I'm like in my mind thinking like, no, this is the only way to do this. But you have to listen to the client.
Of course.
Try to make things work.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes it's like that, sometimes not.
Yeah. I mean, considering that there are so many different kind of ways, and in the end, you need to make money in the end. So,
yeah.
And that goes for everybody making anything. I mean, the developers need to make money on the game, or else they're not going to be living for long.
Yeah, true.
So it always comes. I know a lot of people find it hard to talk about, but I love to have that understanding that this is an open space and we need to understand each other a bit more. Because in the end, I mean, this is what it's all about.
Yeah, true. I hope I didn't have to ask money. I could just do cool music. That's just what I would like to do. But I have to pay
in
rent.
A utopia.
Exactly. I have to pay rent and dog food and stuff like that. So
yeah, feed my dog.
Yeah.
But also considering all the different areas, all the different bosses and so on we have in this game, I didn't really pay attention to this, but is there any sort of motif to the main character you're playing in this soundtrack? How about no?
For the main character?
Yes, the one you're playing.
No.
Is there any motif? No? Okay.
No, there is no theme. I think there is only theme for the journey, not for the guy. It's like there wasn't much information on the. I know the story of the main character. I won't spoil it, but it's there.
You wake up and then you go on exploration.
Yeah, that I can say. But yeah, it's like I was thinking about when I was writing the game theme song that there would be like a theme for the character also, but then I ended up just making this theme melody for the game and for the journey, and just like trying to make the world as fleshed out with music as possible.
And this is very interesting. You actually picked the main theme first. That was one of your picks. And then you changed that one for the Repository of the Unknown, which in my opinion was a great change. But at the same time, I was like, do I want to pick the main theme?
Yeah.
Because one thing that we haven't really talked about, we talked a little bit about trying to get a lot of different kind of folk music and so on into this and getting instruments and so on. But one thing you don't have in many other tracks more than the main theme is one specific thing. And is like one of the first thing you hear when that track starts up. And that's the throat singing.
Yeah.
How come you chose to go with the Mongolian throat singing for the... Maybe it's not Mongolian, but it felt like very Mongolian throat singing.
Yeah, it's... I think I wanted to... They were asking in the beginning of the project, like... They were mentioning Mongolian folk influences and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then I also did some throat singing myself on the, not the safe room, but the shrine track.
Yeah.
And somewhere else also bits and pieces here and there. But yeah, I think it was a cool way to start the soundtrack.
It definitely is. I mean, I think this is like the most intensive main theme I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, it gets kind of crazy towards the end, because I was like,
there's so much things going on in it.
Yeah, that's also one of the songs that I started right away and finished it maybe few weeks before the release. I was like, I wanted to make the whole soundtrack first and then just dive back to the game theme and see that if it still holds up to the expectation and the standard. But yeah, towards the end, I thought that people often don't hang out in menus. They basically, like 99% of the gamers
press within 30 seconds.
Starts. Yeah, in 5 seconds maybe. Yeah, maybe. So I was thinking I could go crazy with the song towards the end.
You will give those who stay in the menu a surprise from hell.
Yeah, and there is metal influences also, stuff like that on the soundtrack in the boss themes, and so it's an unexpected element there. But I think it really sets the whole main theme song, like exposes the whole sound palette of the game.
Yeah, it kind of does. I mean, considering from my perspective here, I would say, first of all, I really like that one, just to have that specified so you don't think anything else. But it felt a little bit too much. There's a lot of layers here going on at once. It felt, at certain points, it felt like 4 or 5 layers at once. I was like, what am I taking in? They're like, here's the choir.
Yeah.
just throw it into my face.
Yeah, it got bigger faster than I wanted. In the end, I wanted to make it even longer and stuff like that. But then I started to feeling that I'm already
You're
saying
overdoing it or something.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, it was also a tricky one to finish for me.
I can understand that. I mean, considering how many different layers, I mean, they need to not just disappear. And I mean, theoretically, you could end the song with a bang. I mean, like everything got destroyed and it's like, oh, this is over now.
Yeah.
But I think that would alienate the track itself.
Yeah, like it had some space to become insane, and it was fun to do.
Yeah. and that is just one amazing segue yet again. Space. Because that is one of the things in my emotion I've gotten for the last track. And I think it's just, let's just dive straight into that.
Yes.
So we're going to listen to, you're the one who said this track name way better than I did. So I'm going to have you present it.
The first progenitor god. I don't know if that's right. I haven't checked in a while, but we'll go with that.
Yeah, here we go with that track. Enjoy. Now we really need to just lower the music down, because holy crap, that there's a lot of things going on in this track. That was the first progenitor god. I'm just reading it slower and hopefully it sounds better. Right? No, it didn't. I can't say it better than the composer itself, right?
I know. I think you nailed it.
Right on head. So, my emotion for this is my smallest emotion, everybody. Pure space opera metal! Exclamation mark. Choir! Exclamation mark. Electric guitars! Exclamation mark. Epic riffs! Exclamation marks. There's a lot to take in here. But yet again, this track really gets accompanied on the battle itself, because it does it so freaking well. So, just to have something, this is the last track of the entire... Well, is there a track on the credits? I don't remember. Maybe it is. I'm pretty sure it is. So it's not the exact last track of the game, but it's one of the last tracks, the most epic last track of the game.
Yeah.
Because holy crap, there's a lot of things happening here, but I really love this one.
Yeah, thank you.
If you wouldn't have gotten this one, I would definitely have gotten this one.
Yeah. I have to take that one. There is so much blast beats going on, so that's
yeah,
that's a must.
But considering your background and working with death metal and so on, how much of yourself have you put into this? I mean, considering all the different kind of music and so on with this and that, it feels like this is the one you have closest to heart.
Yeah, I would say that there is much of stuff here that could also be among my band's roster whispered. But it's like it's this. I wanted to make a song where it combines like the feeling of many of the bosses of the game, and this is like the basic name says it's the first god. So you want to have it as epic as possible, because at some point I was asking, like, do we want to make like this? Many games do it like the true final boss has this really somber theme, like something like you wouldn't expect, like the last boss of Dark Souls has this really somber theme going on, and I was thinking like at some point asking, are we doing something to smash the expectations here? And they were like, no, now we're going to full on to the face. And I was like,
full frontal.
Yeah. So and I was glad about that because I could introduce some elements I couldn't introduce too much in other songs, like really a big orchestral stuff with metal and stuff like that. So yeah, it was really fun song to make.
And when you heard, when you saw them write that to you, it's like go wild, basically. How did you feel at that point? Do you remember?
I feel really concentrated because I already had vision for the song. In a sense, if we would go big, I was like the middle section where the drums really start to go fast, and the guitars come in kind of unexpected also. Well, not unexpected, but in the beginning of the song there are no guitars, like rhythm guitars come on in the middle of the.
Yeah, you have a lot of percussion.
Yeah,
there.
Percussion and bass is quite loud.
Yeah,
and stuff like that. So the guitars kind of swoop in the middle of the song, and that was something I had in mind.
And I feel, considering this track, there's not a lot of games that this specific track would fit, in my opinion. But it fits really well in this one.
Nice, that's cool to hear.
I mean, considering if you would put this into a Mega Man game that we talked about earlier, having rock and roll and so on, I wouldn't get the same kind of feeling. It would kind of alienate Mega Man to some extent, because it doesn't really portray the same vibe that game portrays.
Yeah, it has all the bearings of the other songs, and the throat singing is there, and there are the similar folk elements from the previous songs and stuff like that. So I really just try to convey the whole soul of the game in this in this.
Your opus magnus.
Yeah, in this 4-minute song, just to make something. Or is it 5 minutes? I can't remember. But yeah.
3 minutes and 42 seconds to be precise.
Okay. Not even 4, yeah.
I was like, he's close enough.
Yeah.
I'm not going to comment on it. But you're asked for it.
Yeah. It's have to be specific.
Exactly. No, but in this track, having to get into, like, taking all the different kind of tracks and so on, trying to sum the game up, was there any specific genre that you felt was needed to be more kind of present in this track than the others?
Maybe just orchestra and metal, maybe. Just like giving this the notion of the grand finale, in a sense. Nothing too fancy, just like thinking make it sound as epic as possible, as I said before.
But now that we're talking about, we talked a little bit about when it comes to a listener, it's kind of subjective of what we listen to. And you're having this kind of epic kind of ending to this. What draws in the most epic, considering the instruments you chose in this one, from your perspective? And then I wanted to talk a little bit of mine afterwards, hearing yours.
It's for me, if I'm approaching this from the angle of metal music, then it's the really fast drums with the orchestra and the really fast rhythm guitars. Those are the element in this case that convey the epic feeling in a sense. And of course choirs have to be there also. But yeah, from this I wasn't thinking too much. Like, I was thinking that the main element that conveys the epicness here is metal.
The full metal genre. No, for me, when I'm listening to this, I mean, one of the biggest kind of epic kind of conveyor to date is having like a Final Fantasy music. And one thing Final Fantasy music has a lot, considering boss battles and so on. One of the biggest, considering video game music and epic, I would say Sephiroth is kind of up there.
Yeah, for sure.
And what do we remember the most with Sephiroth? The choir.
True.
Yeah, so for me, considering this, I think the choir plays the biggest part of being epic, because it kind of conveys the power behind the music. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes even the support can be the main character in some things. So even a supportive character can shine more than a main character in certain extents. And I think choirs does a really good thing when utilized in the correct way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I believe in this track you really portray them in a good way.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the song starts with like these choir hits and drums, and then the choir gets quite crazy at the end of towards the end of the song. And there's the middle part with the hits going on with the choirs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are I've used so much choir with Whispered, especially the album we are making right now, and it's like I'm almost I would say deaf to it, but I've been working with so much choir that the power of it can sometimes be foreign to me in a sense.
Yeah, because it's still quite new then for you.
Yeah.
Yep. But also, I mean, considering that you're working on multiple projects at the same time, working in parallel with projects, have that helped you develop the other parts? So like if you get something new that works on one, have you been able to convey it to the other if needed, for example? Like utilizing what you learned.
Yeah, of course. It's like it's like this best thing of making several projects at the same time is that your mind stays fresh and you hear something completely different, and then you start return to something else. It's really it's a good way of taking a break. If you basically shuffling between worlds and you. Okay, how was this world? Oh, it was like this. Okay, and then you might have some fresh ideas, and of course the technical side of it. It's like I've learned doing Voidwrought. I learned so much more about mixing stuff, and it has been really helpful with everything else for me for sure. And it's I'm always learning and always trying to utilize new things I've learned. As soon as possible. Also with some songs, like if I have a project going on, I've written a song for it, and I've learned new mixing stuff and new techniques, and then I listen to the older song. I'm like, oh shit, this needs rework. This really needs to be. this needs a facelift, and I'm always really happy to do that.
Yeah. When does it stop? Do you always like, oh, okay, no, I'm spending X amount of time and then it's done?
I think it never stops, but you just decide that this is done, and it's really hard. It's extremely hard, but I just decide that okay, this is done. And
so as a composer, you're also hitting the feature creep in some extent, then.
Yeah, for sure, because it's some songs are like really, you can say, okay, this is really done. But for songs, especially metal, I'm really enthusiastic about metal because I've been doing it for 15 years, maybe longer.
Yep.
And it's like there is endless void of stuff you can make with the drums and guitars and whatnot. Yeah.
I mean, music is an endless sea of everything, basically. Nothing and everything at the same time. It is crazy, and to some extent I envy composers and so on, but at the same time I know I would be shit at it myself. I'm really bad at being structural and working on one thing. I've listened to many friends trying to explain to me about music and layering and so on, and I was like, can we just work from A to B, please?
But yeah, I'm like that as well. Like,
okay.
I'm always struggling with the consistency and stuff like that. I really have to fight to get things where they need to be. So I hoped I had more like ability to focus one thing at the time. But yeah, it's really, I'm all over the place, but I'm making the best of it.
I love to hear those things. It brings me a bit calmness, at least. I'm not the weird one.
yeah, it's like, and you can hear like many famous composers doubting themselves and stuff like that, and it was like even Tom Hanks when he's not the composer but the actor, but was doing the Forrest Gump. He was like feeling the imposter syndrome and stuff like that. I looked at this interview, and that's like common in the no matter how far you are in your career, you can still feel like an imposter, or you can still like, okay, I can't get how the hell I can get this done and stuff like that. Those are like really common feelings with everyone.
So how many times did you wake up during this project feeling like, I'm not set for this?
Quite many times, but I got through it.
That's great. That's absolutely great.
The vision helps there, because I have really clear vision of what I want to do, and that really helps on those times when you're like, okay, I can't make this sound big enough, or I can't make this sound exactly what I want, but then I just navigate with the vision and hope for the best.
So the vision itself for the soundtrack kind of became your anchor then.
Yeah.
Was it anything specific within that vision, like a melody or something that was the anchor for you?
Maybe just the feeling of what the soundtrack needs to convey. The mood. The mood was the biggest. Like I spoke with.
Did you have any power words or anything like eeriness, somber,
isolation and abandoned?
Okay.
Stuff like that.
Depression.
Yeah, depression.
Money. Rent.
Yeah, the Finnish anchor word for everything is depression, basically.
I think I will convey that into a thing in the podcast now. Yeah. The Finnish convey of anchor. No, but we're getting to the end of this podcast. I mean, we've been talking for about 2 hours now, and we're getting to the end. Finally, right?
Yeah, finally.
Finally. But there are two main questions that I always ask the composers surrounding the composition, the soundtrack that they made. And it's about the challenges and achievements that you felt surrounding and during the process of making the soundtrack. So let's start with the challenge. What was the most challenging for you while working on the soundtrack?
Maybe some specific songs. Some specific songs. And
what was specifically challenging with these songs? Were they challenging to some extent that you didn't know what to do, or was it a new style that you started working in that you weren't so confident in? Or
well, there was the safe room one I was talking about, and there were also some boss themes that were like meant for the encounters and stuff like that, and not having them go too crazy, but just crazy enough. Like, okay, this is a fight, but it's not like too big stakes of a fight.
It's not the fight.
Yeah, and that also brings me to the what I'm achieved with this soundtrack. I think
Okay, so your greatest achievement with this then. Let's jump on that one.
Yeah, because I think I achieved also the making things sound how do you say, not too crazy. There are crazy songs, but the somber songs and the atmospheric songs and the battle songs where the stakes aren't too high, I think I managed to match the expectations I had with those songs. Like really had the right kind of feeling and the aligning with the vision I had.
Okay. That is a great achievement. I mean, getting the understanding of what is enough.
Yeah, because I think with my previous soundtracks I've struggled with that. Like also because I come from a band world. I've come from making albums. And you're not making the background music when you're making an album, unless it's about background music. But yeah, if you're making a metal album, you really want to make great melodies and great riffs and big stuff and everything. Just go crazy with it.
It's like musical actors every time.
Yeah. But with game soundtracks, you really have to tone it down. And for me also, like it really. I was so happy doing this soundtrack because I was so set. My mind was set set in a way that now I want to make a soundtrack that really takes into account the mood and the whole consistency regarding the keeping the right intensity all the times, and keeping it keeping it mellow when it needs to be.
So basically, the achievement and what you'll learn out of this project is having a sense of progression in the song and understanding when it becomes a little bit too much or when it's a little bit too less, and you need to add a little bit more then.
Yeah, the consistency in the intensity. Consistency in the intensity.
Awesome. No, but I think that's a great achievement, to be honest. I mean, learning so many different things and grasping the understanding as well of video game music and having that understanding, and considering that you're also a gamer in comparison to also being a musician, video game musician.
Yeah.
Well, and of course, an artist as well.
Yeah. It's been really valuable lesson, and also I'm really happy about the result.
Definitely, you should definitely be that. I mean, I feel very happy with that, hearing that you got something really valuable out of this.
Yeah, for sure.
And not just paying rent.
Yeah, true.
No, but it's always about this. I mean, considering growing up, understanding, and always being dynamic to change, I think that is the most important thing anybody can have. It's like, even if you feel like, oh, this is how I grew up understanding music, this is what I learned while I was studying, this is how you make music. But then you have that gut feeling telling you that something is missing, something is wrong. And you can find that thing and like evolve your composition and yourself as an artist.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, it's because I play a lot of games, I listen a lot of game soundtracks. And I always admire composers that can keep it together. like doing like throughout the soundtrack something really somber or something really mellow that just ties everything together so nicely. And that's like where the Christopher Larkin for Hollow Knight is a good example. I think the tone and the intensity of the songs throughout the game. I haven't played it too much, but yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, that is the end of talking about Voidwrought, unless there's something else you feel like we missed. Is there anything else you feel like, oh, I want to name this before we close this down?
My mind is empty at the moment.
Then if you find something, you can always write about it on Twitter and people can read it there.
Yeah, I think we covered quite a lot of stuff. And
definitely
and some really cool stuff. It's always really cool to talk about these things, because you don't talk about these things too much. You only talk about these things to yourself when you're making music.
Definitely. I mean, the feedback I'm getting of composers and so on, they're so happy to talk about it, and there haven't been a composer who said no thus far. The only ones who said no so far has been like, I'm really busy at the moment, but we'll talk later.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet.
So that's one of the things I feel very honored about, to be able to talk to so many different people about music, video game music.
Yeah, and it's a lonely profession, so you're really happy to talk to somebody.
Yeah, I can understand that. Sometimes I wish, because it doesn't feel like composers talk to each other that much, but maybe I'm wrong. But that's my kind of take on it.
Yeah, it depends. Like when my best friends are composers also, and well, some of my best friends are composers, and we really talk about a lot of the music, and also I'm really with the band, of course.
But these kind of feels connected to your kind of friendship circle. Have you ever like written to Christopher Larkin saying, "Hey, I really like your music. Would you like to talk about composition sometime?"
No,
but
I've written to some composers that I really like their stuff. Like just send them a message like, "Okay, you did so great job on this soundtrack or this album," and stuff like that. That I've written, because I'm always I really like if something resonates me so strong, I really want to say something back, because I know as a composer, I know how good it feels when someone says to me something that music has my music has had an impact in their life. That's really cool thing to hear.
Yeah, and that's awesome. But yeah, with that said, I think we're closing down everything that is considered Voidwrought and focus a little bit more on you again here specifically.
All right.
After now that Voidwrought is released since last year, what's the next big step for you? Is there anything you can talk about?
Well, I'm still making the soundtrack for the anima, the song from the Abyss, the fantasy action RPG, and there is no release date yet, but that's going on, and also the fourth album of our band is the next big thing that I'm focusing really much also, and it's been going on for a while, but yeah, those are for now, and I'm in talks with some potential projects, but currently I don't have anything, so if there is any developer out there, feel free to offer some work.
If you need this amazing track that you hear in the background, definitely reach out.
Yeah.
If you don't want epic music in your game, what the hell are you making games for?
Yeah, every game needs blast beats and
exactly.
Orchestras and chorus.
I wonder the pressure if you're making a game where you're connected to a heartbeat monitor and something happens depending on how high or low your heart rate is. And this is the music playing constantly in the game.
Yeah. There's an idea right there.
We call the game Heart Attack.
Yeah.
It's in development. Kickstarter will arrive soon. No. But yeah, if anybody wants to reach out, if they have any more questions to you, if there's a developer who like, oh, I really like this, how can I get in contact with you?
Oh, yeah.
How can they get in contact with you?
Well, there is my website.
Bird?
There is my website, jounivaljakka.com, and there are my email address and my socials and stuff like that. So through email is the best way for sure.
Yep.
And you can write to me and at X or Twitter. I never would like.
Yeah, we never call it X.
I would never like to call it X unless you own some Tesla stock. But yeah, basically, those are the best places to contact me. But
yeah. But that is great. I mean, as long as it's easy for people to get in contact with you, that's amazing. And all the information will be, of course, provided in the episode description. So people don't need to like write things down or anything like that. So no need to worry about that. And of course, Spotify links and Bandcamp and even where you can purchase the game if you're really interested in getting into it. I highly recommend it, not just because I've talked to you or know one of the developers, but it's a really good game. If people do like games such as Hollow Knight and like Metroidvanias, this is a solid game.
Yeah, for sure. I think the game turned out pretty nicely, and it has a nice atmosphere, and the exploration is so fun.
The only thing I had that I felt was a little bit on the downside myself, but I mean, who can ever complain about getting your power-ups? But some power-ups felt a little bit alike to each other. That's my only kind of dislike with this. But of course, it's more power-ups. It brings more to the table, so everything becomes more fluent.
Yeah, true.
But that was like the only thing that I had, and it's such a non-existing complaint.
Yeah.
So yeah. But with that said, for this episode as well, we were thankfully and blessed from the developers. We actually received 3 Voidwrought Deluxe editions. That includes the game and the OST. Of course, these are separate keys because he couldn't bring the deluxe keys themselves for some reason. But I want to give a special thanks to Martin Jonsson, one of the co-founders and also the developers of Power Snake, and also my old teacher. No, but 3 keys that will be distributed to people over on Patreon. So if you're interested in being able to join in on this giveaway, the raffle for one of these keys, there's 3 different people that will be able to get one of these games. So feel free to become a Patreon backer and join in on that. Dates and everything will, of course, be provided in episode description as well. But yeah, it usually is about 1.5 week from the release of these episodes. So people gotta be fast if you want to earn a little bit of a game. That is amazing.
Yes.
But yeah, I want to thank you so much for joining in on this episode, Jouni.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was
Yeah.
really fun.
It was super fun to get to know you a little bit more of where you come from, where you end up, and talk more about the soundtrack you did for the game Voidwrought.
Yeah.
It was absolutely astounding.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the next game as well, listening in on the soundtrack and hopefully playing the game a little bit as well. We never know. But for everybody else that's listening in on this episode, if you like this episode and want to listen in on more, you'll find other episodes of the Gameable audio over on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and Pocket Casts. And also do not forget to also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're still getting more and more people there. It's always fun finding new people to reach out to, but also people that just rather want to listen on YouTube channel as well. It is Gameable Audio, and you'll find it there. And feel free to also follow and comment on one of our social medias, either on Facebook or on Instagram. Just search for Gameable Audio, and you'll find us there. And as always, if you like what I do and want to support my work, and especially it's very helpful if people would like to support me right now, because right now I'm having a little bit of a harder part in life, and having that extra financial part would help a lot in making this podcast better. So feel free to become a Patreon backer. New backers that we do have to this date is Alexander Halden and Robin Jonsson. Thank you so much for joining in on being a Patreon backer. And our current awesome backers that we do have before that is Daniel Onemark, Lars Schenström, Titti Schenström, Kevin Wikström, Mike Björkholm, Mats Elkebabo Tapper Holmqvist, and Sandris Wikström. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast. And as said before, links to where you can either buy and support the composer behind the music and the developers behind the game will be found in the episode description. And for the next episode theme, we're going to have a cadence special. And this is together with the composer Thiago Rodriguez. I am super excited for this one as well. Is this a name you know about, Johnny? Thiago Rodriguez.
No.
Is this a name you know? No. So you might listen in on that when you're out for a walk as well then.
Hey, I have to Google it.
Never know. No, but for everybody else, this is not a guy that I knew prior to this. I was actually recommended this composer from a friend of mine who has been a guest in an earlier episode. Thank you so much, Bernardo. Shout out to you. And yeah, I'm just super excited for this upcoming game that he worked on that we're going to listen on. Music that haven't really been previewed to the world yet. So it's going to be a little bit of a podcast exclusive as well. And the podcast theme music here was, as always, composed by the amazing Thor Myrdal. And with that, I want to thank everybody for listening in on episode 50 on the game topic and special on Voidwrought together with Jouni Valjakka. I am your host, Kristoffer Schenström. And with that, I want to thank everybody for listening in on this week's episode. And as always, take care and see you all, guys, next time.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much.